Okay, I'm now at the second point of this lecture number 6, rape culture, and this is women as propaganda. So again, I'll put this slide up for you. Not only do spaces contract for women in war, but women also become propaganda tools, and this is an enormous problem. And I'm excluding women in America who were called in record numbers to the workforce, say in World Wars One and Two, because somebody's going to give me those examples. They're going to say, "Oh, but look at this," and I'm sure, and fair enough. There were more more women workers in World War One and World War Two than there had been ever before, and that brought women into the workforce. They were, especially after World War Two, they were U.S. policy forced them back into the home and out of the workforce. I mean, they were actually taken out of factories. They were forced out of factories, and which they had become very proficient in. They'd become bosses and managers, and they'd become technically proficient. And I mean, here, look at this amazing. Look at this amazing image of Rosie the Riveter. You're probably familiar with the "We Can Do It" Rosie the Riveter. Okay, I'll put that up. All right, fine. This is Rosie the Riveter, sort of the famous. It's been used for just about every single to sell just about every single thing, including Tampax. Believe it or not, I was like, there was. Anyway, Jesus. Here, have a look at the Tampax ad. I probably have a copy of it somewhere. Here, I'll find it for you. Okay, so that's Rosie the Riveter, but then Rosie the Riveter is really a figure. It's there was a song about her which is hilarious too because it actually has the sound of the rivet gun in it. Now these rivet guns are massive freaking things. They're not anymore. But they have these big hydraulic lines, these big air lines, right? Because they put a pop rivet through steel, so they punch through steel and they seal it. Basically, a rivet is really an astonishing piece of technology. It's like a big stapler. So if you're going to hold up a rivet gun all day, you had to be bloody strong. Well, here's Norman Rockwell's Rosie the Riveter. Now check this out. Like now, this is what I consider to be real strength. I mean, I like the I like the "We Can Do It" poster. Sure, it's great. And it's an average looking woman in the sense that she's not ripped. She doesn't look like Ronda Rousey. But check, I just love this Rockwell because first of all she's having such a good time. She's just like, she's the boss, and then she's got this massive rivet gun. Anyway, check it out. Okay, so but that's not the story that we're talking about here. Like that's another story, right? So Enlow says women not only lost their physical security, their expressions of femininity became the battleground for new political actors, Iraqi and American, on page 36. So when the Bush government, for instance, lies about weapons of mass destruction, poison gas, and chemical and nuclear weapons, which I talked about, then, as I said, they started talking about, well, we're going to free women. And suddenly this Bush cabinet, which was rooted in the hard right wing in anti-abortion, that is, against women controlling their own bodies, which is so ironic about, for a group of people who say that, the state shouldn't intrude and so on, unless, of course, it's them, in which case they get to tell, Republican men get to tell women what to do because they're Republican men. It's okay, that's fair. Whatever. Fundamentalist, Christian, Jewish, get to tell people, here, this is what we're going to do with your body. This is like, okay. I mean, no, that's just hypocrisy. But then these same people started talking about freeing women. Okay, from what? Like, how about starting by freeing them from you? So on page 88, Enlow says, what appeared to be new during the Iraq and Afghanistan wars was promoting girls' schooling to justify military intervention. And as both wars dragged on, turning girls' rising school attendance or its decline into a measure of whether the militarized security strategies were succeeding or failing. So what you've got here is instead of using a body count, so remember this in Vietnam, it was like, how many killed today, soldier? It's like, what's the day today? It's the 17th. 17, sir. It's like, oh, great, okay. So we send that up, and then with the day of the body count, we say, okay, today we killed 100, take in all the deaths across the country. We killed 512 VC, Victor Charlie. And how many American dead today? Soldiers like, 5, sir. It's like, well, I think we've done an excellent job today. And then you print that stuff in the paper in the morning, and people go, well, we didn't do too badly yesterday. Only 5 killed. Okay, well, this is the same kind of thing. So in the middle of the war, the early part of the war, people were saying, "See how many young girls are going back to school." It's like, what? How many would have gone to school if you hadn't put an embargo on Iraq, and if you'd actually, like, what if you'd actually, dealt with this guy, and said to him, "We won't give you support unless you stop torturing people," and yeah, okay. But no, we had to go to war apparently to get some people to go to school. Of course, what really happened was that more girls, let alone women, were thrown out of schools. More schools closed and stayed closed because you have to stay there. You have to, I remember they were talking to, one of the things that the Bush White House did was it fired a whole bunch of people who are deeply familiar with the Middle East. I mean, here you've got people who have 20, 30 years of speaking Arabic and working in the Middle East and living in the Middle East and working with people and knowing people and so on and going back and forth. So that you deeply experienced people, and they got rid of them. I was like, oh, we don't need your advice. Boom, and they blew them out of office, or they blew them out of the civil service. Well, at some point in the early days, they said to them, well, this is why they got rid of them. Like, how long do you think it would take us to win this war in Iraq or Afghanistan? And in Afghanistan, they were like, well, 100 years. I mean, if you go and stay, you'd need to stay for 100 years. And the Americans were like, well, what? We're 100 years. No. No. We won't. I mean, no. We can't manage that. What are you talking about? It's like, well, that's what it's going to take. The occupation of Iraq was uncertain, but the guesses were 30, 40 years. And that's probably still true. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's the whole situation just was so disastrous. So of course, what happens if you don't stay is that you can't maintain security for people, and people get killed. And as their children are getting killed, they're like, well, that's it. No more school. Forget that. I'd rather have a live kid who can't read than a dead kid who can read. Thanks, no thanks. And so of course, as I talked about yesterday, girls specifically, stayed out of schools and university permanently. And so we now have a lost generation there, at least one generation. This is a serious after effect of ongoing war. It's like countrywide sort of cultural PTSD. It's incalculable what this is going to do to the future of the country, let alone the future of these individuals, all of whom have actual lives. So women are once more reduced to props in the military, to helpless, to be saved, and then to be forgotten, when they're no longer useful. Enlow says on page 78, time after time in press photos we see a girl in her night clothes looking stunned. We hear nothing at the moment or afterward from the girl, what she is thinking, what she later tells her friends, what she asks her mother, what she writes in her diary, what she keeps bottled up inside herself. This is page 78. And this is very true. There just were no follow-ups. I mean, they were sort of like, this is a picture of disaster. Great. People were like, oh, look at this. It's terrible. Well, we're freeing them. Next story. And that's the way it went. And this issue of, the girls in their nightclothes, because soldiers often broke into houses and blew down doors at night, which is just terrifying. I mean, that's the point. It's supposed to be terrifying. Okay, who were the terrorists? This is always the issue. Rah, 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 rah. It's hard to stay calm around this stuff. Okay.